Will you start?
Okay. Guten Abend, das ist eine große Freude und auch eine Ehre, diese erste Pressekonferenz mit Olaf zu halten. Das ist, glaube ich, ein sehr wichtiges Zeichen unserer gemeinsamen Wille, zusammenzuarbeiten, Deutschland und Frankreich. And I want to reassure you, I will make it in English. But I wanted to recall that it's a very important signal to have both the Vice-Chancellor of Germany and the Minister of Finance of France taking a common press conference for the first time. For many years it has been unusual to have both finance ministers expressing their views together, and this is really a clear signal of our strong willingness to work together to complete the Eurozone and to work on all issues. I just wanted, first of all, to thank the Bulgarian presidency for the organization of this meeting. I think it has really been a very useful and fruitful meeting. I wanted also to tackle 3 points which were at the core of our discussions during that informal meeting. The first one is Greece. On Greece, we made progress. We think that Greece is on track to complete the 4th review. They have taken important decisions. We are still waiting for some more decisions, but we think that we are on the right track to complete the 4th review in June. And we also started to discuss the post-program framework for the treatment of the debt. And as I explained yesterday, we think that that framework must be clear, comprehensive, and it must be credible for the market. So we will continue to work on that during the following weeks. We had also a very useful exchange of views on digital taxation this morning. We think that what is at stake behind the question of digital taxation is the independence of Europe, the ability of Europe to define and to protect its own economic and fiscal interests. And that's why we are so keen on having a formal proposal adopted as soon as possible. And we think that there is no difficulty in working on a short-term solution and also, it's a kind of double-track approach, on a long-term solution on that. So we will follow on the discussions on that key question of digital taxation. On the Eurozone reform, which is, of course, the most important thing that we discussed with Olaf during this meeting, I wanted to tell you that we had intensive and fruitful discussions with Olaf on the future of the Eurozone during that informal meeting of Sofia. We are entering into a phase of acceleration, and this is necessary if we want to agree on a common roadmap in June for the next European Council. As you know, it is a requirement of both Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron, and we strongly believe that we should be able to find a compromise between France and Germany on a common roadmap for the next Council of June. We spent a lot of time last night with Olaf discussing all the issues and all the topics that are on the table, the banking package, the backstop, NPL reduction, EDIS, strengthening of the ESM, the fiscal capacity, as well as wider issues such as tax convergence and the capital market union. I can tell you that we left no stone unturned. We are willing to follow on the discussions in the coming days and in the coming weeks. I will go to Germany as soon as possible to follow on the discussions from a technical and political point of view with Olaf, with the view of reaching an agreement by June. I want to conclude in insisting on the fact that the Eurozone is really at a crossroad. And everybody is aware of that. Either we are able, in June, to define a common roadmap for a better functioning of the Eurozone, for an improvement of the Eurozone, and for greater integration of our common currency framework. And then we think that we will strengthen the euro, improve the competitiveness of the Eurozone, and be able to face the challenges of the future. Or we are not able to find a compromise, and then it will be difficult to give a new impetus to our willingness to build a better Eurozone. So that's why I cannot imagine that we can't reach an agreement, and once again, I'm confident that both France and Germany will be able to put some common proposals and a general framework by June. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno. Let me first thank the Bulgarian presidency for their work and all the things that have been done to make this conference really fruitful. I think this is something special, and we are very proud that this was held here in Sofia. Yes, we are discussing bilateral together and together with many other friends about the work on the European Eurozone, and this is something where we shall get some success in the summer of this year. As Bruno already explained, there is not too many time left for getting all the necessary decisions which we have to reach for getting a decision that could be taken in all the responsible councils and meetings. And it is absolutely important that France and Germany agree about the questions that have to be suggested. So it's, in the end, our task to find the route, to find the path where we have to go, and to develop an idea that could be an idea for all the others involved in the European questions and in our European Union. We do think that it's absolutely important to get a strong euro, and to have, for that, it's absolutely necessary that we do some progress with the banking union, and we will. It's absolutely necessary that we discuss about the further task of the ESM, that we solve the questions of the backstop and all the other questions that have been raised by Bruno. And we are working in these fields together, not just today, but we started already. We had good progress during the meeting and during our possibilities to speak to each other, and we will continue. As Bruno already mentioned, he will visit me in Berlin, and this will be a very hard working meeting, but in the end we need some progress. And if you look at the schedule, you will see that it's desperately needed in the end to get this success. Our message, and the message with this press conference, is that Germany and France are really working on the task, that we are absolutely optimistic that we will succeed, and that we will get the suggestions that are necessary, and that they will really help to strengthen the Eurozone, and this is what it is about. Thank you. So if there's any question, yes, please.
Microphone.
Thank you. Jim Brunston from the Financial Times. A question to Minister Le Maire. Minister, were you surprised at the level of opposition in the meeting today to the proposal on digital tax, especially the fact that the United Kingdom now seems to have swung quite heavily against the proposal? And a question for Minister Scholz as well. On Euro reform, you've expressed a general willingness to engage on these topics, but how much common ground do you actually see at this stage with some of the more ambitious plans that President Macron has put forward? Thank you.
So I'm not surprised on your first question by the reactions expressed by some member states during the meeting. I just want to recall that the UK signed the letter in September in favor of a European digital taxation. And I don't see what could lead the UK to change their mind. We are independent countries, and we should remain independent countries. We are an independent continent, and we should remain an independent continent, taking into account, of course, the positions and the remarks of our allies, but being always able to define and to defend our own interests. We can no longer accept to have our SMEs and all the private companies paying a high level of taxes in our nations when the digital giants are not paying the same. If you want to explain that to your citizen, good luck. But I strongly believe, and the French president strongly believe, that now, on the question of digital taxation, it's time to decide. We have a very good proposal put on the table by the Commission. It is a reasonable one, a limited one, a focused one, an efficient one, and a fair one. There is no opposition between this short-term solution and the long-term solution on which the OECD is working. And I want to thank the OECD and to commend the OECD for the excellent jobs they are doing on that issue. But we need to decide. It's a question of efficiency and it's a question of fairness. So I can tell you that with the President Emmanuel Macron, we have a total determination to achieve an agreement on that question of digital taxation by the end of 2018 at the European level. The question behind that is to know whether there is an independent Europe able to decide, able to defend its interests, or if the European countries do not have the courage to take their fate in their hands.
It is of highest importance that President Macron took the initiative to get some strength and velocity in the question of European reforms. And this is what helps us now to get compromises, to find solutions, and this is what we are working on. You asked about whether there could be common ground on all these questions that have to be solved. Yes, there is already common ground, and we are now working to get something which could be a path for anyone to use it. And this is why I'm really optimistic that we will find solutions in all the questions raised. And I just will remember you that it is about the ESM. You know that we are discussing about how we can develop the ESM to something that could be more than it is doing today. There is the debate about something like a European Monetary Fund. This is also an idea the German government is following. We agreed upon this aim in our coalition agreement. And there is the question of the common backstop. There is the question of reducing risks and all the NPL and all the other topics on the agenda that have been raised. So I think that we will get a lot of success and that we are also discussing how we can get more possibilities for a better convergence in the Eurozone. This is also which is related to the initiative of President Macron. The idea is that if we are together in this European Union and if we are together in the Eurozone, it must be possible that we have the means to support a good development in our common union.
Ivo Cheizzi, Corriere della Sera. The European Central Bank is urging since quite a while to complete the banking union. If you can please tell us where we are now with the European guarantee on deposit and especially the position or your single position on the issues. Another question, if I may. Yesterday, Minister Le Maire already commented about the slowing of the growth in France, but since we had a similar situation in other countries in the first quarter, I would like to ask both of you, what's your opinion on the downside risk for the growth in the Eurozone, especially if we consider that we are on the way to go out from the quantitative easing on the ECB. And I will ask specifically about this to the Minister of Germany, since Germany is the country that has benefited more from the stimulus of the European Central Bank.
So I think there's still no doubt that we are having a good economic development and that there is growth. There is now discussion about whether this growth will continue in the on the path we already have, but there will be still growth, and it's just giving the sign that we have to look carefully what is going on. But I'm quite optimistic that there will be a good development all over in the Eurozone, that we will have more growth, that we have a reducement of unemployment, especially what is absolutely important, the constantly reducement of the unemployment of the youth. And this is our common goal, to work on that question. So we think that we are together, and this is how we look at the questions.
I share the point of view expressed by Olaf. There is growth, and there is a solid growth. Even if the results for the 3 first months of 2018 are not exactly the same as it used to be at the end of 2018, we have a solid growth in Europe. Now we think that because there is a solid growth, we should add new reforms and pursue the transformation of the French economic model. And that's exactly what we are doing and exactly what we are willing to do with the French president. That's why I will introduce a law at the French Parliament in the coming weeks, the so-called Pact, with the view of reinforcing the growth in France and creating more jobs for the French people. You know, growth is not something that comes from the sky. It's something that comes from our willingness and our determination to improve the functioning of our economy. On the question of EDIS, I just want to recall that first of all we have to reduce the level of risks for our citizens. That's why we are working on the reduction of the NPL. We are doing that in a very reasonable manner, but we have to reduce the level of risk for our citizens. And then we can envisage some risk sharing by a step-by-step approach for EDIS.
So the two last questions, I would say.
Thank you very much, Alex Pigman from Agence France Presse. I have a different question for each of you. Minister Scholz, I was just wondering, we understand that you did not intervene during the digital tax discussion. I was just wondering why you chose not to intervene during the digital tax discussion today. And for you, Minister Le Maire, I was thinking about the deadline of May 1st for the metals tariffs with Trump. And there's a lot of talk, I think especially in Germany, that there's a certain openness to the idea, despite the toughness of the debate with Trump on trade, that maybe we can get into trade negotiations, sort of a TTIP light or anything like that. I was wondering, is France open to doing that with the Trump administration, even before or after an exemption?
So let me start. I intervened in any panel nearly. And there is a big debate about the question of digital tax. And as you know, this is also a debate which we have in Germany. Anyone knows that it is a big moral question that the biggest companies of modern times are not really contributing to the public duties we have to follow. And this is not good for all the enterprises in our countries. It's not good for the people who think this is not how it should be. And if we are stepping a little bit behind, we would understand that this is something very new. Short after we have a new phenomenon in our economy, and this is still the case looking at digitalization and all the possibilities of big companies related to the social media area. We are discussing about to react to this new phenomenon. We did this in Buenos Aires at the meetings with the OECD. We did this did this here, and there are some suggestions on the table. So I'm quite optimistic that completely different to events like this that happen to the economic development of the world, we will be able to react very soon. So it's necessary to have this debate, and it's necessary to find a solution. And I think there is no country that could accept what we see today, that big companies are not part of the game.
On your first question, I would like to recall that there is no reason why the EU should be hit by new tariffs on trade from the US administration. We are not responsible for the overcapacities in steel and aluminium. We fully recognize that there is a difficulty, and we are ready to address that issue with our American allies. But we cannot negotiate under the pressure. And we don't have to be the collateral damage of a trade war between the United States and China. As far as the negotiation you mentioned is concerned, I just want to insist that we don't want to enter into a global trade negotiation with the United States. We don't see the necessity of that, and President Macron has been very clear with President Trump during the state visit in the United States. First of all, we are waiting for an exemption for the EU from the American tariffs.
So the last question.
Jacques Smith from Politico. A question to each of you, if I may. In terms of the EMU reform debate, France has led a lot of the ambitious calls, so a Eurozone finance minister, an EMF with a shock absorber, a rainy day fund, whereas Germany has poured a lot of cold water on pretty much most of those and has asked for a very measured response. So, Monsieur Le Maire, if you could comment, I mean, are you upset at the lack of ambition that's coming from Berlin? And Herr Scholz, if I may, could you explain Germany's thinking a little bit? Is Paris nothing more but a dreamer? Or are you more concerned about the voters in your own country than the future safety of the Eurozone? Thank you.
I think I don't look upset. I look quite satisfied by the result of the in-depth discussion that we had during this informal meeting with Olaf. And I can assure you that we are on the right direction. And we have both France and Germany exactly the same ambition, which is to have a stronger, more integrated Eurozone, provided growth, jobs, and stability to the European citizen. I think Olaf and I, we share exactly the same ambition. President Macron and Chancellor Angela Merkel share the same ambition to have a stronger and more efficient Eurozone. Then we have to find a compromise on the way, the best way to reach that goal. But once again, I can tell you that after this informal council, I'm really confident that we will find a consensus.
So just let me add that we are really working very hard to find solutions, and we will. I'm absolutely optimistic about this question. And that at that stage, it's not necessary to develop something that could be a plan, but to present a plan. And this is what we will do very soon. And if I imagine it must be possible for you to wait to the end of May and June, and it's not too far away.
Don't be upset. Thank you.
Thank you.